Hello students, I welcome you all to this session on supply. This session will take you through the following contents: theory of supply, wherein I will discuss what is supply, the concept of supply. The next topic would be individual and market supply. Then we'll discuss what are the determinants of supply. Finally, law of supply, and last you have the different ways of expressing supply. Theory of supply. Now, before we go into the details, they say demand and supply represent two arms of a market. Demand represents the consumer side, and supply represents the producer side. Now, as a consumer, how much you would be willing to buy at a certain price is what the theory of demand is about. Whereas theory of supply discusses what quantity the seller would be willing to sell at a particular price. Now, when you compare a producer and a consumer is more important because if there are no consumers or buyers in the market will not exist. Whatever is produced will not be sold. So, we give a lot of importance on demand, but supply is also an important part of economics. So, in this session, I'll be discussing that. Now, supply is the amount of a product or service which producers are willing and are able to offer for sale at a particular price. There is an example which I have mentioned. There are 20 pairs of shoes available for sale on a particular date, and each of which is priced 1500. Now, these 20 pairs of shoes would be different in terms of appearance, in terms of comfort, in terms of brand, color, etc. But their price would be somewhat around 1500. There would be some shoes which would be priced 1499, 1450. But basically, the price revolves around 1500. So, this is something which the seller has made available for sale in the market. Now, other things about supply. The law of supply states that as price increases, quantity supplied increases. Now, this law would be discussed in the next slide. Now, the next point is factors like cost of production, that is input cost. Input refers to raw materials, raw material cost, the technology used for production, number of sellers in the market, government policies, and expectations of consumers. These are the factors which can affect supply. The supply curve is upward sloping as against demand curve, which is negatively or downward sloping. And lastly, we'll be discussing supply elasticity, which measures the rate of change in supply because of a change in price. Normally, when price increases, the seller makes available higher quantities per sale. So, how much or what is the increase in the quantity supplied? That is what supply elasticity measures. Individual supply and market supply. Individual supply is the amount of something, it can be a service or a product, which a single producer is willing and is able to offer for sale at a specific price during a particular period. Now, suppose you go to a shop, there is a shop very close to our college. Now, that is owned and operated by a single seller. So, individual supply here is the quantity which he has offered for sale during a particular month or a year at a specific price. Market supply is the total quantity of goods or service which all producers in a market are willing and are able to offer for sale. Now we take a sum total of all producers dealing with a specific product. It can be shoes, it can be bags, it can be books. Now you can take the case of booksellers, your engineering books. So market supply is what all booksellers are willing to make available for sale at a specific price during a specific period. It is the aggregate or the total of all individual supply curves in a market. Determinants of supply, or you can also call it factors affecting supply. There are five major factors which affect supply: price of inputs, technology, number of sellers, government policies, and lastly, we have expectations of future prices. Let us take the first factor which affects supply, which is price of inputs, or you can say the price of raw materials. Now, if the cost of resources or raw materials increases, imagine you are a timber merchant, okay, or suppose you run a furniture manufacturing business. In this case, you need labor supply, and your major raw material is wood. Suppose labor cost increases or the cost of procuring wood increases, your production cost increases, and as a producer you'll be charging a higher price, and when price increases, consumers begin to react. They reduce their demand. The demand for your furniture or whatever product you are producing comes down. When demand comes down, supply will typically decrease. So when production cost or price of raw materials increases, supply supply decreases. Second is technology. Improvements in technology can lead to increased production efficiency, which can increase supply. An example which we cite in this is olden days we had typewriters. Typewriters were then replaced by computers. So when you had computers in your offices, they started working four times faster than what a typist could do. And now you have different programs, and finally you have artificial intelligence. So as technology increases, production becomes easier, faster, and larger. So naturally, supply also increases. Then you have number of sellers. More the number of sellers in the market means a higher supply of a product. Imagine you have only five cell phone makers in a market. You will have a limited number of cell phones or handsets in the market. Now, suppose that increases to 20. There are 20 suppliers producing the same, it can be a cell phone or any product. So more sellers means you are being supplied a higher supply of a product. Government policies. Government policies relate to taxes. Taxes normally you have your GST. Then you have subsidies. Subsidies are a kind of payment which the government gives to producers. Now you have your cooking gas. The cylinder actually costs rupees 1500 in the market, but as a consumer you get it at a subsidized rate of 1200. Remaining 300 the government pays as a subsidy to the producer. The government tells the producer this is essential for living, so you should offer it at a reduced price, and the difference we would compensate. So that is a subsidy. Similarly, you have other regulations by the government. So government policies can also affect the supply of goods. Suppose government increases GST. What happens is your product becomes expensive, demand falls. Suppose government gives you a higher subsidy for something. So your production cost comes down and you can make a larger quantity available in the market. So some of the government policies will be helpful for supply, and some of the government policies will not be beneficial to the supply. Last is expectations of future prices. If producers expect prices to rise in the future, they may decrease current supply to hold inventory for higher prices later. This normally happens in the share market or any commodities which can be preserved for a long time. So, if producers feel that prices are going to rise in the future, they hoard away their goods, or they reduce supply in the present in order to increase supply in the future. So these are the factors which affect supply. Law of supply. The core principle of the theory of supply is the law of supply. The law of supply states that as price of a product increases, the quantity supplied of that product also increases, other things being equal. Now, other things mean any factor other than price of that particular commodity. When price increases, sellers will be happy to sell more, assuming that income of the consumer or taxes or taste or habit of the consumer has not changed. It is only the price which is increasing. Now, suppose income also increases. So, there will be a different effect. So, here the law states the relationship between price of a product and its supply. So, what happens is producers are generally willing to produce and sell more of something where they can charge a higher price and where they can earn a higher profit. Supply curve. In this slide, we have a graph on the on the right side. We have quantity shown on the x-axis, price on the y-axis. Now here they show the relationship between price and quantity supplied. As price increases, quantity supplied also increases. Assuming this is the price, for this price, the quantity supplied would be this much. When price increases, the seller, in order to earn more profits, he'll make available a higher supply or a higher quantity in the market. So the supply curve is upward sloping, indicating that as price increases, quantity supplied also increases. In the case of demand, it is the opposite. We have a downward sloping curve. You should keep this in mind because normally students make a mistake. They draw a demand curve instead of a supply curve and a supply curve instead of a demand curve. You should not make a mistake, so be careful. To the last slide, supply elasticity. The elasticity of supply measures how responsive the quantity supplied is to changes in price. We all know when price increases, supply also increases. But if the price increases by 10%, will the supply increase by 10% only, or less than 10%, or greater than 10%? So this is what elasticity of supply measures. If a small change in price, that is, say 2% change in price, leads to a large change in quantity supplied, that means from 10 it has increased to 12 or 14, and quantity supplied has almost doubled. In that case, we say supply is elastic. If a price change has little effect on quantity supplied, now there are some cases where even if prices increase, suppliers may not increase its supply much. The supply is considered inelastic. So, just two points need to be kept in mind. What is elastic supply? What is inelastic supply? That is all about supply. Thank you very much.